Hi, friends. I'm going to be starting a little series here of meditations using the poetry of Jacapone de Toda, who was a Franciscan um, who lived in the 13th, early 14th century. Uh, a little information about him. Really, there isn't a lot known about his life, and this actually comes from your dictionary, which is available online. But what it tells you here is that though there are few facts known, what we do know is that he was born into a noble family and that by profession, Jacapon was an attorney. And his wife was also from a wealthy family and seemed to share her husband's worldly life as near as we could tell until she died in 1268. And in the collapse of a burning building at a dance feast. And when that happened, he found out she was wearing a hair shirt, which, it's a shirt of animal fibers that would make you itch very much, and people will wear it to do penance or to show they're willing to do penance to God. And she was wearing this under her festive dress. Not uncommon at the time for people that were seeking God. And this discovery led ultimately to his conversion to a religious life. And Jacapone left the law and lived in seclusion as a penitent, and eventually he joined the Franciscan order. Now, at that time, the Franciscans were divided into two groups, and they still are to some degree, the conventuals and the spirituals. And the spirituals want to keep the rule of St. Francis in a much more exacting way of poverty and austerity. And the conventuals said there must be changes in the rule with the time. And they produced a lot of people ultimately like Boniface and some others who were known widely for being highly educated and theologians. So I guess it depends on how you look at it. But in 1294, there was a poor hermit that somehow became elected Pope, Pope Celestine V. And Jacapone really liked this. And he was confident that Celestine would do the right thing. And the Pope did grant the spiritual Franciscans a certain amount of autonomy within the overall Franciscan community. And they were called the Poor Hermits of Celestine. And Jacapone wrote some poems exalting poverty belonging to this period. But Celestine was soon succeeded, I don't know if it was through death or what, but by Boniface the VIII, and Boniface was not really in favor of the spirituals. And together with other Franciscans, and I'm a Franciscan, and it's kind of sad they gained power, because really power isn't a Franciscan thing, but particularly the cardinals, Jacapone and Pietro Colonna, who were protectors of the spirituals, Jacapone became very upset about that, and declared Celestine's abdication from the papacy as invalid and the election of Boniface as a farce, more or less. And Boniface excommunicated the rebels. And one of them he excommunicated was Jacapone. And Jacapone was in prison, Jacapone de Toda. And he wrote poetry, writer poetry in verse, about his wretched state and all of his troubles and problems. He wrote them to God and to others. And eventually he was, for some reason, absolved of excommunication and released from prison by Boniface's successor, Benedict XI. Kind of interesting how things bounce back and forth with the popes, depending on who's in there and who among their friends are in and out. He spent the last 3 years in Umbria at a convent where he died probably on Christmas Day. But he wrote about 100, what you might call lauds, and these are psychological and spiritual reflections about contempt for the world and the horrors of sin, but above all, for this great, magnificent love of God that Jacapone had. And so we're going to be doing on the next 3 or 4 videos, and I hope you're listening to this one if you haven't started those yet as a background for them. We're going to be settling in, dropping in, getting ourselves receptive and peaceful, and then we're going to listen to some of Jacapone's poetry and plug our heart into it and let it speak to us. So glad you're with me, and I'll see you in the next video.